fucking master!
After all we've been through, it can't be for nothing. There's no halfway with this. We finish what we started.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Brickmasters podcast, a spoiler-filled recap show for the hit HBO series The Last of Us, starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. And with me is my wonderful co-host, media studies professor, Dr. Veronica Paredes. How are you?
Chris, I'm here, and I have a pun. I wrote it.
Let's hear it.
I couldn't sleep last night. Okay, you ready?
Okay.
All right. Why was Ellie's mom looking for a new home at the start of this episode?
I don't know. Why was she?
Because her place didn't have mushroom for a nursery. I kind of flubbed that last line. But that was all right. That was mushroom. That was okay.
You kind of stumbled on the punch.
I know.
Like
it's hard to be a comedian. It's hard.
It's hard, isn't it?
I know.
It's not so easy like people make it is, Mom.
I know. I flubbed it. Oh,
and
well.
Black Twitter.
You get the gist where I was going.
Oh, my God. Well, that was good. I like that one. I liked it.
Thank you.
It was good.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, man. Episode 9, Look for the Light. Written by Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann. Directed by Ali Abbasi. A pregnant Anna places her trust in a lifelong friend. Later, Joel and Ellie near the end of their journey. Veronica, what are your overall thoughts on this episode, the way it ended, as a person who has not played the video game?
Mm-hmm.
What did you think of this series? What did you think of season 1?
Yeah. Well, okay. The season on a whole, great. Really well done. Stands alone, even without playing the game. This episode is interesting. You know, for a season that's done so great with pacing and going in and out about how to do the adaptation between the video game and the TV show, you know, even though I haven't played the game, it's kind of there as a text to think about. This episode felt short. I do feel like that. I do feel like with some of the reception around it.
Yeah, it was 44 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, objectively, it was short.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like I think it hit all the beats. It's very efficient. It did what it had to do to end the season. But yeah, I did want a little bit more at certain moments. We can talk about it. But overall, great season, good end. I did want a little more in this episode.
Now, when you say a little more, what do you mean? What do you mean by?
Specifically,
Yeah.
I think that could have spent more time with Anna in the beginning, or weaved it into the episode, the Anna scenes. I'm not sure how it would have worked. The kind of, I really enjoyed some of the scenes, like the giraffe scene, or like some time with Joel, you know, between the decision that he makes at the end of the episode, at the end of the season. There are certain moments where I think I would have wanted more time and added beats into the episode. Yeah, but it's not like I always think it's maybe a bit better to have less and want for more than to have too much and, you know, lose interest.
Now, I would agree with you with more Anna, with more Ashley Johnson. I think she's great. She voiced and mocapped Ellie for both games. Really talented actress. She does a lot of like live action stuff too, but she was just really good. I could just tell. We'll get into it a little bit, but like, what if I told you that you actually did get more of Joel and Ellie, more than what you got in the game? And
I believe that. Yeah, I see that. I could sense that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They were really spelling things out. We'll get to it, but they were really spelling things out and making the creators were really making their case.
I see. Okay. Well then
receive this episode. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So we'll point to those where that was already extended.
Yeah. But I would say that a lot of the things that I was thinking about, like, it's interesting because even though I think they want to shift us towards having a certain kind of feeling, they also laid down a few breadcrumbs for how Joel's decision would play out, how Joel would act by the end of the season, and especially with Bill's letter, anybody, what is it? I don't know if I copied it or oh my God. I didn't know I was going to bring it up this fast.
Bill's letter to Joel.
Yeah. At the end of episode 3.
Yeah. I do want to mention while you're looking for that is that Ashley Johnson is interesting. Just the actor, I know that people have really close relationships with her and her development of Ellie as a character. She's a child actor. I mean, I don't know if you remember her from Growing Pains.
Yeah, sure.
But she was a kid actor.
Show me the smile again. Alan Thicke, God rest his soul, one of the greatest TV jingle writers / singers, from Different Strokes to Growing Pains.
Oh yeah.
Family. I don't know if he did Family Ties, but he might have. I don't know, but he did a lot.
What was his name again? Say it again.
Alan Thicke. He played the dad.
Oh, okay. No, I thought you were talking about. Oh, yeah. I thought you were talking about the music themes, the intros.
Well, he did. That's what he did.
What?
He also did that.
What?
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that.
He did.
Wow. Okay. That's
why I say that 50 Cent, at least in the African American community, I would say that 50 Cent is the closest thing we have to Alan Thicke as far as like writing the theme songs, really good theme songs to TV shows for Power and
got it.
The Power franchise and now and more recently BMF.
Mm-hmm. So. It's just wild though that I hadn't realized that he was a theme song composer. Okay. For Different Strokes and Facts of Life. Okay. Yeah.
I'm trying to find that. Okay. What's at the end of the. Okay. This is what I want. This is just the part that the part where Bill tells Joel, he says, when he talks about, I saved him, meaning Frank, he said, and I protected him. That's why men like you and me are here. We have a job to do, and God help any motherfuckers who stand in our way. Meaning everybody in that Salt Lake City hospital.
Yeah, every firefly
except the two nurses
Joel encountered.
Yeah, so we knew what was coming. I knew what was coming, obviously, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find a person that would be surprised at how Joel acted towards the end of season 1.
No, that's true. I guess it was more. So if it wasn't that, then maybe, it would have been. They took so much care throughout the series, throughout the season, of filling out these villains, filling out Kathleen, played by Melanie Linsky, and then I don't want to say David because that guy was kind of broad and caricatured.
Sam and Henry.
Yeah. So Sam and Henry mostly in the Kansas City storyline, right? That there are no villains and there are no heroes. So that sketching out and fleshing out of those characters would have been nice maybe for the Fireflies to be a little bit more, and Marlene to be given a little bit more time, maybe. If the Joel kind of thing is already feeling quite established throughout the whole series.
Right. And we do get to see a little more of Marlene. I mean, out of all the people that were involved in the game, she's the character that appears the most, and really, I was trying to think, like, because I'm not a scholar on American dreams, and I have to be. I never said throughout this podcast that I'm an expert. I'm just somebody who loves the franchise, but I'm not a scholar on these American dreams comic books. When they released The Last of Us Part 1 on PS5 last September, I tried to get the limited edition that would give you, like, you get the 4 little comic books or whatever, but maybe I'll just buy them from Amazon or something. Or somewhere. Amazon is not a sponsor. But
so these are like the prequel comics?
Yes, like before we get to, before Ellie meets Joel.
Mm-hmm.
But Left Behind kind of still comes after that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Left Behind, because I think I said this on our episode 8, whenever we reviewed Left Behind, they had been to that mall before.
Right.
I believe. Yeah, they had been to the mall before, and that was in American Dreams. So,
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So go ahead.
Is Marlene more filled out in one of those prequels? Is that what you're saying? Or?
I think so. A little bit. And then even in the show, I mean, we don't know. I didn't know she did that to Anna. You kind of figure something happened. You kind of figure that, and Ellie spelled it out at the end. We assume that she probably had to take out Riley, but it wasn't said in the game. But we're sure that she had to do that. The first person she kills is the first person she really loved. Right. That's fucked up. And she's got all that survivor's guilt, and that kind of plays into what we will most likely experience in subsequent seasons of this show, and you will see it in the game. Right. And the way that it's placed in the game is pretty, I would say it's pretty masterful. Out of the clusterfuck, the beautiful clusterfuck of The Last of Us Part 2, the messy masterpiece that it is, there's still some beautiful shit in there. And it's like, and it just kind of tells you, and maybe you and I'll talk about it. It's hard because I want to talk about it, and Rod and I have talked about it on the pod, on the main feed, and throughout just our conversations about whenever it comes up. But yeah, it's the more you think about it, it's just like, well, his reason is the reason that most people who are parents would do that for. And even our creators in their podcasts were saying, we feel that Joel did X, and we didn't agree with it maybe, but who was it? Craig Mazin said he was had his daughter out like for a stroll, and a car was playing loud music or something, and it woke his kid up, and he wanted to kill the people that were playing loud music. So I mean,
so it was a motorcycle or something.
Yeah, a motorcycle went by or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think from my perspective on this point, it's like I watch characters I on TV shows that do despicable, terrible things. One of my favorite shows right now is Succession, and I love Veep. These are terrible people doing terrible things. I'm not saying that this is that. Like, they're kind of supposed to be more relatable and all that, but if people did the things that I would choose to do, it'd be so boring, and I wouldn't want to watch that. I hardly want to take part in my own life. Why would I want to watch that?
What did you just say? You hardly want to take part in your own life?
Why would I want to watch someone making these decisions that are not so fun, not entertaining. Just,
You're so macabre.
come on.
Oh my God.
So why would I want to watch that? No, I want to watch people make bad decisions
Yeah.
and, make the choice that's going to be more interesting and entertaining than the
Right.
one that I would morally make. Why would I want to watch that?
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, that's the kind of thing that we've had, really, I don't know if Tony Soprano started it, but it's around that time and around that time that Mel Gibson had that movie called Payback, where he was a kind of a bad dude. I think that was like around late 90s. And then you start seeing, Walter White, and you start seeing, now more recently you've got what's my man from You,
Oh
Penn
God.
Badgley, which that's kind of, to me, I feel like that's run its course. But
Right.
for some reason I'm kind of like a completionist, and I'm like, okay, I'll watch, excuse me, the last 5 episodes of this thing.
Hmm.
You kind of just want him to get caught, like he would. I kind of felt like Dexter should have get caught or whatever. But for
Yeah.
Tony Soprano, you're like, no, I don't want him to die. Some of these guys, some of these anti-heroes get outstay their welcome, I think. Some of these do.
Sure. Um, yeah, and it's all like maybe sometimes you watch it because you really don't like the character, you find them despicable, or sometimes you find them despicable, but they're still charismatic, and you
Yeah.
still are interested in what's going to happen and how it's going to play out. That's like the relationship with Jeremy Strong playing Kendall,
Mhm.
Kendall Roy. And one of my favorite lines from Succession is when Greg, in the last cousin Greg in the last episode says, gosh, what's the name of the husband? Why am I forgetting Shiv's husband's name?
I don't
There,
know.
Matthew McFadden's character.
Okay.
And anyway, he's saying, what do you want to do? It could be morally ambiguous and morally reprehensible what I'm going to ask you to do. Do you still want to do it with me? And cousin Greg says, yeah. What do I want a soul for? Souls are boring. And
Yeah.
it's just like, that is, yeah, I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch whatever action comes after a line like that.
Sure. Of course. Yeah. And it's coming towards the end of this month. So
yeah,
something to look forward to.
So we're trying to come up with the hopeful things that we'll be able to watch after this is done, because this season's over. And, there's a little bit of a dip in energy because it's an exciting adaptation, but it's also sad that this kind of leg of the story is, on pause now, or has completed itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's get into it once more. Into the breach, Veronica. So we get a cold open. We get to kind of book in the first episode on a pregnant Anna, played by Ashley Johnson, running through the woods. And as soon as you could hear her gasping and running through the woods, I was like, that sounds like Ashley Johnson. Because you're so used, I was for so many hours of playing with her, you're like, okay, that's right. Ashley Johnson.
It's a voice you know well.
Yes. And she seems to be in labor, and she's running from we think more than one infected, but we find out that it's just one. She's running from an infected. She runs into a farmhouse that looks like a safe house. And then there's like what do you call that? Like a silo with the Firefly emblem on there. And
I kind of missed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she goes in there and she says, "It's me. Anyone?" Nobody's there. She heads upstairs. Her water breaks. She goes into a room and puts a chair behind the door. She sits up against the wall and draws her switchblade. An infected starts banging on the door and busts through against, and then and Anna kills the runner. And then she looks down. She's given birth to baby Ellie. Ellie's born into trauma. And Anna cuts the umbilical cord and holds her. She says to her, "Yeah, you tell him. You fucking tell him, Ellie. You're so tough." And she says, "It's okay. I got you." Sweet nothings to her baby girl. After the credits, we see 3 people with flashlights walking into the farmhouse. It's Marlene and 2 dudes, 2 of her dudes. Their guns are drawn, and they search the house. Marlene heads upstairs. She hears Anna singing to baby Ellie. Only one needle drop. She's singing this episode, and you bet your fucking ass I have a St. Vincent parallel, everybody.
Oh no.
That's gonna come towards the end. Uh she's singing The Sun Always Shines on TV by Aha. And that's from their debut album, which also features Take on Me. And because this song came out in 1985, that means there's trouble. But there's already been trouble. But, it's still the theme. It's still the 80s. All right. Where was I? So the guns are drawn. They sing. And then Marlene heads upstairs. She hears Anna singing that song, and we can see that Anna's bitten. She's been bitten. She tells Marlene that it's not her fault. Marlene says, hey, we got held up at the QZ, and Anna says she's hungry and she didn't want to nurse Ellie because she's been bitten. She cut off the umbilical cord before she was bit. She says before, and she's lying so that Marlene can take Ellie because she doesn't want them to think that Ellie's infected. She says, I want you to take her to Boston, find someone who'll bring her up and make sure that she's safe. Marlene says, I can't do that. And Anna says, and I want you to give her this. She places the switchblade on Ellie and wraps her in her jacket. She says, her name is Ellie. Marlene says, I can't. Anna says, how long have we known each other? Marlene says, our whole lives. And Anna says, so you pick her up right now and then you kill me. Anna starts to grunt. She's turning. She's crying. Marlene says, I can't kill you. And Anna yells after her, please, about 3 times. Marlene hands the baby to one of her men and tells them to cover her ears. She goes back into the room and she shoots Anna. And baby Ellie starts crying. Marlene takes baby Ellie and holds her. I want to read you something from the game, which is Anna's letter to Ellie. Now we don't get this in the game. We don't get this in the TV show, but we get this. It made me think of this right before we joined to do this, Veronica. I said, why don't I just read this letter and just see what you think about it? Ellie, this is Anna's letter to Ellie, and you get this when you play as Ellie for the first time in at the resort. So when you're trying to, fend for Joel. Here we go. Ellie, I'm going to share a secret with you. I'm not a big fan of kids and I hate babies. And yet I'm staring at you and I'm just awestruck. You're not even a day old, and holding you is the most incredible thing I've done in my life. A life that is about to get cut a little short. Marlene will look after you. There's no one in this world I trust more than her. When the time comes, she'll tell you about me. Don't give her too much of a hard time. Try not to be as stubborn as me. I'm not going to lie, this is a pretty messed up world. It won't be easy. The thing you always have is to remember that. Side one of the note ends there. She says, life is worth living. Find your purpose and fight for it. I see so much strength in you. I know you'll turn out to be the woman you're meant to be. Forever, your loving mother, Anna. Make me proud, Ellie. And then once you put it's a collectible that you have. And then once you finish reading it, Ellie says, I'm trying to make you proud. And that she says it to herself, to her mom, to herself. Your thoughts, Veronica, on this letter and the opening 2 scenes?
Yeah. I think it makes sense not to have included the letter. And, Ashley Johnson says in the official podcast that she had it as like her backstory. But I think, yeah, it's smart it makes sense within the context of the game to include that.
Right.
This presence in the way that they're able to write Anna's story into the season finale makes a lot of sense. That baby actor, which I guess it was 2 twins. It was, a pair of twins.
Okay.
2 babies.
Right.
I thought they were CGI babies. These were good baby actors, man. I was very impressed by these babies. They did a really great job. I don't know who's going to put their baby in a job like this.
Getting
Not
that
to
SAG
judge,
money.
not to judge those parents,
Well,
but
they don't know.
gosh.
They don't remember. Why? They don't remember what's going on.
Oh, so that makes it fine.
Of course, it's The Last of Us, bro. What are we doing? What are we talking about? It's The Last of Us,
All right.
like the Nirvana
Well,
baby,
I guess. But these
or the
babies,
baby
I
who
was
played the late great Biggie Smalls and
sure. That's like a toddler. These feel like these babies, if they were, they're convincing. More convincing as newborns than the usual baby actors that you see. That's all I'm saying. And they were just like really. I was very impressed by the baby acting that they were able to get. So these scenes, just like Ashley Johnson, it's amazing. I would have liked to have spent a lot longer with Ashley Johnson and Merle Dandridge in these scenes.
It was great. I love those flashbacks. It's really cool, and I felt like, oh shit, all right, just things how they kind of mirror and bookend each other. Like you see it. I love that. I think that's the thing that I loved about Lost a lot more than I love that about Lost the most, even though they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They did that right. You know what I mean?
Which I didn't watch Lost.
Didn't watch. Well, Lost would do this thing where the premise of the show, right? Gilligan's Island, but with supernatural shit. They take an episode sometimes and spend on a character what their life was like before the plane crash.
I see. Okay,
and it was so compelling that it was done so well that now that you're with this person in their present day, you root for them or you don't. You know what I mean? Like you feel more emotionally connected and emotionally invested in that character.
Yeah.
So Ashley Johnson, to me, just spending all that time playing with the game with her voice and stuff like that. And it just seems like her personality she's like super charming, and her presence is kind of like really, it seems like she has a really good aura about her.
Yeah.
Like a fun elementary school teacher, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, there's just so much chemistry that they're already there's so much repertoire that they're already building on between the actors. Yeah. Between Ashley Johnson and Merle Dandridge, having Merle Dandridge having played Marlene in the game. So you just have that intimacy immediately between the actors. You have that intimacy between the players of the game and Ashley Johnson, like you're describing their relationship with Ellie through her. So there's just so much richness that they have to draw from as writers and creators in that relationship that's like pretty special. Like, you don't get that in a kind of series like this otherwise, So there's just so much to mine there. This is one of my favorite scenes of the whole episode. Was the cold open, was the Anna bonding with baby Ellie. And then I do feel it between Marlene and Anna. I would have liked more because I feel like there is a lot of richness that went kind of like untapped a little bit in the short scene.
Yeah, because Anna was a nurse and they knew each other for a long time. It's just, I think it just goes to show you how, like we've talked about, I kind of made fun of, but like different perspectives, and you get to see like, well, what if you swing the camera over to this person, this nurse who's in distress, giving birth to a baby in this time, being chased by infected, so it's like, what's her life like? What was it like before? And just the fact that, it's the right person. Ashley Johnson's the right person to give birth to this TV Ellie, and the knowingness of like knowing that journey, saying, I got you, you tell him, Ellie, like, and it was like a beautiful moment,
Yeah.
Like you just come in and do that small part. That's what they mean when they say there's no small parts, just small actors. But there are small parts. I've played several of them.
But Chris, the actor, is not. It's.
But I'm just saying.
You're a giant, though, Chris.
Yeah, I'm a big dude. Yeah. But
No, I didn't mean it literally. I mean it symbolically, and the power that you carry in your performance.
Oh, sure.
Anyway.
But yeah, no, it was just like a beautiful. I fucking loved it, and that's why I don't want to harp on it. But then we got to get through this. But like, you're absolutely right. Like, it's like, man, it's something about the way that shit is shot, the color of her dress, the forest. It just looks great, and you want about 15, 20 minutes on her.
Yeah, because both of those scenes, it's at the 13-minute mark, and that includes the previews and all those things. I don't think, that's so short. It's like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Both those scenes. That includes the credit sequence. So I don't know. It also is like, it's so perfect. Like, you think about Better Call Saul and the way that they were able to cast, you knew that actor too that played. Oh my God, what's the main character of Better Call Saul? Played by Ray Seaborn.
Oh, Ray Seaborn. Okay.
Shit. Anyway, the person who you knew that played the mother.
Oh, yes. Oh, God, Beth Hoyt that played her mother. Yes, the great Beth Hoyt.
I mean, that's just by chance that you found somebody that like resembles the actor in like physicality and face and all those things.
Yeah.
This is like so special, and that kind of like cut that we're about to go to between baby Ellie to 14-year-old Ellie. It's just like part of that kind of pacing and the editing. I understand why they want to get on with it, but I could have spent a little longer with it.
It's like, we're only going to show you this, and this is what you can pull from that character. Why she's like this in current day.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. That's a great comparison. Yeah, absolutely. Ashley Johnson. And it also made me feel like this episode, I was more like, I liked Merle Dandridge. Marlene felt a little more lived in. Like, just, I don't know if it was something they had going on with her wig in that first episode that was like weird. I don't know.
The aged Marlene is not as good. This is so great. Yeah, she does look better in this episode generally.
Yeah.
And then even like in this flashback, she just generally, the hair and makeup looks a lot better.
Yeah, because Merle Dandridge is beautiful.
I mean, the scene between the two, they are, they're both beautiful people. Yeah. But she is, and I want to spend more time.
Yeah, it's just like this the flashback and that last sequence before Joel, he turns into Joel Wick or
nasty man.
Yeah. I don't know if he's a nasty man, but we'll talk about that. All right, so we cut to present day Ellie sitting in the back of an old pickup truck, looking pensive. Joel is calling after her. She doesn't hear him, and he finally gets her attention. He found some beefaroni, and the board game Boggle. He said, he says something like, if you want to beat me in something, you could beat me in this. And they're getting in close to the hospital. Joel puts that in his pack. You kind of see him do that in the video game all the time when you play as Joel. He raided an RV and found that stuff. And he tells her that they had a guitar in the RV, but it was smashed up. He says, but it got him thinking, maybe he should find one and teach her. And he says, he bets she'd be great at it. Ellie's still a bit out of it. And then says, yeah, that'd be great. And they continue walking. Joel says, okay, so this is what I'm thinking. Ellie says, cut through that building, around that stuff, and find a skyscraper, go up and look around. Joel says, actually, this time I was thinking we'd blast our way through the rubble. I found some dynamite in that RV back there. Ellie says, really? Joel says, no. So we're just going to cut through that building, find a skyscraper, and look around. But I had you going, didn't I? I thought that was pretty funny. Then they head in the building. There's no way up. Joel finds a way to get up via a ladder. If he gets Ellie up there, she can, drop the ladder down to him and he can climb up. Ellie's on the other side of the room, not paying attention. Excuse me. Joel asks if she's okay. Ellie says, yeah, I'm fine. Joel says, it's just you kind of seem extra quiet today. Ellie says, oh, I'm sorry. Joel says, no, it's fine. Did you hear what Ellie says, yeah, boost. Got it. He boosts her up just like they do in the video game. She passes him the ladder and she sees something as she's passing the ladder and she drops the ladder. And Joel's like, what's going on? Then she runs away. Joel fumbles with the ladder. Ellie says, you got to see this. Joel says, stay right there. Up here, Ellie says. She's ahead of him running up the stairs. And we see a giraffe. It's a giraffe. Joel and takes off some leaves and gives it to Ellie so she can feed it. Now in the game, they pet the giraffe. But in this one, Ellie feeds it the leaves. And this to me in the video game, it was one of the most beautiful moments that I've ever seen in a video game. So then Joel, they finish that, the giraffe goes away. Joel says, so is it everything you hope for? They're looking out on the landscape of Salt Lake City. Ellie says, it's got its ups and downs, but you can't deny that view, which is a callback to episode 2. Joel says, look, I don't know exactly where this hospital is. Ellie says, yeah, we'll find it. Joel says, sure, it's just maybe there's nothing bad out there, but so far there's always been something bad out there. Ellie says, we're still here, though. Joel says, I know. I'm only saying that there's risk. Message, because he loves her. We don't have to do this. I just want you to know that. Ellie says, what do you mean? What else are we supposed to do? Joel says, nothing. We just go back to Tommy's. We forget about the whole damn thing. Ellie says, after all we've been through, after everything I've done, it can't be for nothing. I know you mean well. I know you want to protect me. You have. And when we're done, we'll go wherever you want. Tommy's, Sheep Ranch, the moon. I'll follow you anywhere you go. But there's no halfway with this. We finish what we started. And then Joel nods. Your thoughts on this sequence, Veronica?
Yeah, the giraffe scene is another one of my favorite scenes of this episode. And I can see, I wonder if the CGI looking giraffe look the same CGI as the video game. It's pretty interesting how it looks. But I was going to say that, this also reminds me of Chernobyl and those kinds of scenes where after humanity has left because of all the damage it's caused with the nuclear shutdown and kinds of, toxic environments that humanity has created, it returns to nature, right? And this kind of, who knows how these giraffes ended up here in Salt Lake City, but here they are, and it's a family of them.
Probably a zoo.
Probably a zoo or something.
And then, how they keep saying just nature continuing to go on as humanity dwindles. And I think that's another message to how we're just these tiny things.
The timeline of the universe is much greater than the
existence,
humanity's dominance over it. And just that the tongue of the giraffe is my favorite part, actually, specifically. Okay. The giraffe eating the leaves from Ellie, who, in her lifetime had never been to a zoo, I imagined, whereas Joel, had probably seen a giraffe at a zoo and knew that they were peaceful enough to be able to feed. I think this kind of overgrown space of that building and the giraffe is pretty lovely. I felt uncomfortable, Joel trying to them switching roles and Joel trying to get her attention and, distract her and make her feel better. It was kind of uncomfortable. So the fact that, nature's able to provide that moment was really good, really well done, I thought.
Yeah, I want to think about, I want your thoughts, and remember, I hope I don't forget. But when we're done, I want to think about what Ellie told him, I'll follow you wherever, after we do what we got to do. I just want to remember, like, when we think about what Joel did, Ellie didn't know that she would have to die for this.
Sure.
So I kind of want you to think about that or make a little note and see if we can like talk about that towards the end.
Yeah.
So they continue walking through Salt Lake City. Looks a lot like the game. They did a really great job with that. I think they did a bang up job. Ellie says, "Is this a Fedra thing?" Joel says, "No, the Army. Emergency medical camps. Obviously didn't last. They had me in one just like this." Ellie says, "With Sarah?" Joel says, "No, she was gone already." Ellie says, what was wrong with you?" And Joel says, "It's for this." He points to the scar on his head. Ellie says, "Oh, the guy who shot and missed. I figured that would have happened later." Joel says, "No, second day." Ellie says, "Well, I've got to hand it to the Army people. They were way better at stitching you up than I was." Joel says, "It was me. I was the guy who shot and missed. He tried to kill himself. This is not in the game. Joel's a fucking cuck." And
what?
No, he's not. No. I was just trying to say he's weak. No, I'm surprised that they went there. I want to know your thoughts on that. But anyway, I was like, this is like, surprised the hell out of me. But there's a moment that someone pointed to on YouTube where, like somebody you walk up on a body and there's somebody that probably killed themselves. And then Joel was like, it's not easy to do that, to take your own life. Anyway, that was me trying to tell a joke. He is not a weak man.
Thank you.
All right. There's no story. Sarah died and I couldn't see the point anymore. And I wasn't scared. I was ready. I couldn't have been more ready. Then when I went to pull the trigger, I flinched. Still don't know why. Anyway, the reason I'm telling you all this, Ellie says, "I know why you're telling me all this." Joel says, "Yeah, I reckon you do." Ellie says, "So time heals all wounds, I guess." And Joel says, "It wasn't them that did it." And then,
sobbing uncontrollably.
And then Ellie says, "Well, I'm glad it didn't work out." Joel says, "Me too. We should probably get going." Joel says, "Yeah." So, okay, we'll push on slightly further, whoever I'm bad at in words. Joel says, "You know what I'm in the mood for? Shitty puns."
Mm-hmm.
Ellie indulges him and starts, telling puns that Joel critiques until someone from behind throws a smoke bomb at their feet. It's the Fireflies. We start hearing ringing noises. Smoke surrounds them. They grab Ellie, and one of them knocks Joel out with the butt of his gun, a rifle, I presume. Everything goes white. Your thoughts on this little moment here, this sit down that Joel has with Ellie?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. As we dissect the episode, I see the paces and how they have this moment of vulnerability. The giraffe breaks through the ice that's kind of solidified between them through Ellie's trauma. And Joel is trying to, thaw it. But it takes that giraffe, that moment, that accident for it to actually, an opening to come.
Yeah.
And, in the official podcast, they're talking about how this banter and this kind of teasing or this kind of back and forth is truly them like saying, "I love you" to one another.
Yes.
That's heavy for a kid. The thing about like, it wasn't time that healed it. Right. I mean, yeah. What's that?
It was you, it was like,
yeah.
It was Ellie.
Yeah.
And it's still that kind of, now, for as much as they reveal on this show, like we see Joel cry in episode 7, we see him talk about killing himself in this episode, but he couldn't say, "You saved me,"
which I think makes sense because
it does, fine, but it's like it still, validates my premise that these are just like that. These are like, this is some cowboy shit.
Yeah.
That neo, what did Wikipedia call No Country for Old Men, neo-Western or some
the revisionist.
Huh?
A revisionist Western or something that's kind of, or just a neo-noir Western?
I'll find it. American neo-Western. Yeah, just a neo-Western. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that one took,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I was thinking about this, like, what would fill in the kind of details of things that I was craving a little bit at the end of the episode. And it's definitely not Joel talking more. It's not, because that doesn't seem true to like his character.
Right.
And even that's what was so uncomfortable about him, like talking as much as he was in the beginning when he's trying to cheer Ellie up. It's like, this is not you. This is not like how you would process this. Feels
now
weird.
that did happen in the game, though. He was trying to connect because remember she just murdered David.
Yeah.
And in the game, once you wipe away from that sequence, you're in the fall. Like I guess like the fall, and then Ellie's staring at a picture of a deer, like an art installation, like a piece of art. And it's a deer, and she's staring at it, and then Joel is calling after her, and he's trying to, he's kind of on that Holden Caulfield shit where he's like, Ellie, hey, I can teach you how to swim, I can teach you how to play the guitar, and he's trying.
Yeah, he's filling it up, it up.
So he's trying to do that, but like to me that part seemed a little natural, and they did talk about it on the official podcast where it was like, man, she's lost her innocence,
which I don't really care for those kinds of narratives generally, or those kinds of framings.
Yeah, I think it's a little
simplistic to me.
It's simplistic, it's pedestrian, it just kind of, oh, she's lost her, but it's just more of like she's not the same.
Yeah.
You're never gonna get that back. But then at the same time, she sees that giraffe, and that's like a beautiful moment where it's like she can still recognize beauty. And the fact that like because I was glad that Ashley Johnson was there for that podcast, because she was saying, like, someone said when Ellie,
both the voice actors had different interpretations than the creators had.
Right. When they said it's pretty fucking cool, Joel was kind of sad. I don't think he was sad.
I don't think so either.
No.
And that's just how she talks.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, and I don't think that means anything really. It's just like
the
same as saying, oh, cool.
Yeah.
What I was going to say is, when you were talking about that, it's like Joel's reaction. It's sort of like when a kid falls and you're kind of like waiting of like, oh my God, are they going to react? Like if they skin their knee or something, or if like a delayed reaction.
Yeah.
And it's you like, oh my God, are you okay? Like, you kind of like, let's just distract you with something else. Like, we don't have to think about this pain kind of thing that's happening.
Sure.
So yeah, I guess it does make sense. It's just like, I don't mean that it's bad the way that it's portraying Joel. It's just like, oh, this is danger. This feels like uncomfortable. Like something's not quite right in the dynamic where Joel has to feel like he has to comfort in those ways.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I think I agree with that. The intention of it and what they're trying to do, I think is right. But yeah.
Yeah, it's because I mean, some shit's gonna go down. Some shit's gonna go down. I agree with you, but it's almost like, because we still get like in part 2, fuck man, I don't know. We'll talk about it off mic, I guess, because I don't want to spoil it for anybody that hasn't played the game, because I think people are probably gonna start playing the game.
Yeah, and they might make different choices. The creators might make different choices in the adaptation for season 2.
They said that they really were going to stick by. It's going to be 2 seasons. Season 3 is.
I see.
Like season 2 is going to be like half of part 1, half of part 2, rather. I'm sorry. And it's enough to be, because the game's like at least 20 plus hours.
Right.
So, all right. Okay, so Joel wakes up in the hospital. Marlene says, "Welcome to the Fireflies." And he tries to get up, and she says, "Easy, you got hit pretty hard. Patrol didn't know who you were." Joel says, "Where's Ellie?" "She wasn't hurt, not even a scratch. She's mostly worried about you." Where is she? We lost half our crew crossing the country. I had 5 men whose only job was to protect me. I still almost got killed. How'd you do it? It was all her. She fought like hell to get here. She would have been dead day one. God damn, Marlene. You were the one person I never wanted to be in debt to, but I owe you. We all owe you. Joel says, just take me to her. Marlene says, I can't. She's being prepped for surgery. What surgery? Our doctor. He thinks the cordyceps in Ellie has grown with her since birth. Why is she in surgery? It produces a kind of chemical messenger. It makes normal cordyceps think she's cordyceps. It's why she's immune. He's got to remove it from her, multiply the cells in a lab, produce those chemical messengers, and then we can give it to everyone. He thinks it could be a cure, Joel. A cure. Cordyceps grows inside the brain. It does. Find someone else. There's no one else. We didn't tell her. We didn't cause any fear. There won't be any pain. Joel says, no. Take me to her. You take me to her right now. A firefly hits him in the stomach and aims the gun at Joel. Joel says, please, you don't understand. Marlene says, I do. I was here when she was born, Joel. I promised her mother that I would save her child. I promise. So I do understand. I'm the only one who understands. I'm sorry. I have no other choice. Joel says, I do. Walk him out. Marlene tells her men, walk him out to the highway, leave him there with his pack, give him this, which is Ellie's switchblade. He tries anything, shoot him. All right, 2 fireflies start to escort him out. Joel stops and looks at a sign on the wall. They're on the 4th floor, cardiology. The hospital has 6 floors. The 5th floor is labor and delivery, which is maternity. The 5th floor is labor and delivery, maternity. The 6th floor is pediatrics and pediatric surgery, where Ellie is. One of the fireflies says, I didn't hear anyone say stop. Joel says, which way? The guy says, down the stairs. He pushes Joel. They head downstairs. Joel stops. Firefly says, the fuck are you doing? Keep walking. Joel turns around and knocks the shit out of the dude, takes his gun, and kills the other firefly. He shoots that dude in the leg and asks, where is she? The firefly says, fuck you. Joel says, I don't have time for this, and shoots him in the head. Then we hear someone over the radio say, shots fired, shots fired. Joel takes Ellie's switchblade, some ammo, and his backpack and starts executing fireflies throughout the whole hospital as we hear the score play. Then he gets to the 6th floor. He gets to pediatrics. He sees doctors working on Ellie. Joel says, unhook her. Doctor says, how did you get in here? Joel says, I said unhook her. Doctor says, won't let you take her. I won't let you take her. He picks up a scalpel. Joel shoots him. There's 2 nurses. They start screaming. Joel says, move. They unhook her. Cover her arm. Fast. Joel picks up Ellie. And this reminded me, this is my needle drop. This reminds me of St. Vincent's song that was on her self-titled album called, it was like a B-side. It was called Pieta. We'll talk about that later. But he takes her in the elevator and stares at her. And they get to the basement level car garage. Marlene comes out of the darkness with her gun drawn and said, you can't keep her here. You can't keep her safe forever. No matter how hard you try, no matter how many people you kill, she's going to grow up, Joel, and then you'll die. She'll leave. Then what? How long is it till she's torn apart by infected or murdered by raiders? In the game, she says raped. Because she lives in a broken world that you could have saved. Joel says, maybe, but it isn't for you to decide. Marlene says, or you. So what would she decide? Because I think she want to do what's right, and you know it. It's not too late. Even now, even after what you've done, we can still find a way. It looks like Joel's considering her, what she said. Then we cut to Joel driving away with Ellie in the back seat. Ellie says, what? Joel says, it's all right. You're with me. Take it slow. The drugs are still wearing off. Ellie says, I was with the Fireflies, and then what drugs? They were running some tests on you and some others. Cut back to the garage with Marlene. We cut back. Turns out there's a whole lot more like you, people that are immune. And he's given Ellie the Aaron Rodgers treatment, dozens of them. And the doctors, they couldn't make any of it work. Cut back to the garage where we see Joel shoot Marlene. They've stopped looking for a cure. Ellie says, "Where are my clothes?" I don't think that's in the game. Raiders attacked the hospital. I barely got you out of there. We'll find you some new ones on the way. That's not in the game. Ellie says, "Were people hurt?" Joel says, "Yes." Is Marlene okay? I'm taking us home. Ellie, who's laying down, turns away from Joel. She knows he's lying. Joel says, "I'm sorry." Cut back to the garage after he shoots Marlene and puts Ellie in the back seat of I think that's a Dodge Durango. Anyway, Ellie puts Ellie back in the car. He goes to Marlene, who's on the ground, begging him to let her go. Joel says, "You just come after her." Then he shoots her. Then do you want me to finish reading this, or do you want to just keep going? Do you want me to stop? Keep going?
I mean, there's not much more, right?
There's just a little bit more.
Up to you.
Okay, then we go see the truck smoking. So they're heading back to Jackson. There's a couple of shots showing the days go by as they're traveling back to Jackson. Then we cut to the truck smoking with the hood up. Ellie's looking at her bite from the infected. And then Joel says, "Well, she got us close enough. We got to walk the rest of the way. It's about a 5-hour hike, but we can manage that. Remember?" Ellie says, "Yeah." And we cut to them walking. Then Joel is just yapping away. He says, "Sarah and I used to hike like this all the time. I wouldn't say it was her favorite thing. She wasn't a fan of the mosquitoes and such, but she was a big climber, or scampering. That's probably the right word. That girl, she see a big rock and she would have liked you. Not to say the two of you are the same. Definitely different kids." Ellie says, "How so?" "Well, she was a lot more, I want to say, girly. And I'm not saying that you're not girly." Ellie says, "I'm not." And Joel says, "Yeah, you're not. That's not in the game." So that she was taller. She had a killer smile. Again, not saying that you don't. But you know why? You know why I think she'd like you? Ellie says, "Why?" "Because you're funny. Women aren't funny." And then he says, "You would have made her laugh. Anyway, I bet you would have liked her back." Ellie says, "Yeah, bet I would have." Then they get to the outskirts of the settlement. Joel says, "There you go. Not so much further now." Ellie says, "Hey, wait." And she says, "Fuck." And she's like, trying to get herself together. She says, "Back in Kansas City, you asked me about the first time I killed someone. When I got bit at the mall, I wasn't on my own. My best friend was there and she got bit too. We didn't know what to do. And she says, we can just wait it out, be all poetic and just lose our minds together. And then she did. And then her name was Riley and she was the first one to die. And then it was Tess and then Sam. And Joe says, that's not on you. Ellie says, I know. Joe says, look, sometimes things don't work out the way we hope. You can feel like you've come to an end and you don't know what to do next. But if you just keep going, you'll find something new to fight for. And maybe that's not what Ellie says, cuts him off and says, swear to me, swear to me, swear to me. Swear to me that everything you said about the Fireflies is true. Joel says, I swear. And Ellie nods her head and says, okay. And that's the end of season 1. Veronica, please share your thoughts with me on the hospital massacre and subsequent moments.
The hospital massacre. I don't know. How do you think it? I would have liked a little bit more kind of pushback from these fireflies being massacred. I did think, in the official podcast, they did talk about how Joel's biggest strength in this kind of situation is that he disassociates, and then is able to kind of be very calm in a way that's that a normal person would be panicked and, missing because they're kind of, that clouds one's judgment and being able to kill and all these things. And I think that this is maybe more than any other part of the series, kind of like the tension or interesting kinds of comparisons you might have between a first person shooter game and, a TV show. The kind of the meeting of the surgeon and then the surgeon thinking that he has a chance. He's just none of the Fireflies are very smart in how they're trying to take down Joel. The surgeon, the moment he says, unhook her, he says, you're not taking her anywhere. He's got this puny scalpel in comparison to Joel's gun. It's just like, I feel like this is maybe, I think there's some restraint, and the way that the faces of the victims are shown is making an attempt to humanize these, what otherwise would just be sort of like NPCs in the video game. I wish that there was a little more. It's really, this is like that kind of the point where it's like so much happens so quickly in this moment. I think that, that followed by the scene where then again, Joel is like talking too much and something's wrong. Because why is Joel talking so much? And why is he lying and shit and like all these different things that are really suspicious? And it's obvious that, it's obvious that Ellie knows what's going on, what's up, and she doesn't want to have to ask him outright. I think that, maybe this is the scene that I have the most trouble with, is like the massacre in the hospital and the subsequent kind of like talk with Marlene, which I feel like, how close are those to the ways that they are shown in the game?
It's pretty close. It's pretty like, it's almost word for word. Like when I mentioned that Marlene in the game said she could get raped, I was like, God, like, it is something even Joel doesn't even say when they're out, when we get to, what is that episode? Before they get to Kansas City, where she's like, well, there's no infected out here. Yeah, but there's people that want to do worse shit, know. In the game, like it's a couple of waves of people in that hospital trying to get. And you're like, I mean, as a typical games are like, you got to save the princess.
Yeah. And
you got to do whatever you got to do. And these people are shooting at me. I'm going to shoot back.
Right.
And in the game, I was with this girl for almost like 16, possibly like 20 hours and stuff. I'm saving that girl. And I killed everybody. And I didn't even think about it. I wasn't like, oh my God, I'm killing. And I was like, no, these people are shooting at me. I have my objective to finish this game is to get that girl from out of surgery. Because nobody says shit about her having to get killed to find this cure, to get this vaccine. And the doctor from what's our place where what town is it? What country is it from? Episode 2.
Which character?
Oh, the doc.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes. At the very beginning of the cold open, where we're in a Southeast Asian country.
She said there was no cure.
Jakarta, maybe.
Jakarta. Yeah. Let me make sure. I think you're right though.
Indonesian. Yeah.
Indonesia.
Mm-hmm. So anyway, that scientist and that doctor.
She said there's no cure. There's no vaccine. But then that was 20 years ago. And you think like the Fireflies aren't going to be, they don't have the capability to use a vaccine and all that. I mean, the
bedside manner is terrible. The bedside manner of the Fireflies are really leaves something to be desired. I don't know what kinds of meals Ellie was getting, but it's like not good. It's not good service. this
because
hospital.
in the game now in part 2, there's a flashback of Marlene talking to the doctor about what has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
And the only way to do it is to kill her. And what they did on the TV show was like try to break it down and say, yeah, we're gonna get this vaccine, we doing this, we
Right.
doing that. They were being very methodical about saying like, this is how we're going to save her, to make the audience, I don't know, to manipulate the audience and be like, Joel was wrong for doing that because they could have saved humanity and blah, 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 blah. But everybody knows, and like what Neil Druckmann said, and when they play tested the game, the people who did not have children were like, kind of split on whether Joel was right for killing everybody. But everybody who had a kid who play tested the game was like, oh yeah, Joel was right. Like 100%. Like he was right for killing everybody.
Yeah. I think that, like obviously it brings up these kinds of moral issues and
But
questions,
that's the thing.
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. I mean, that's the key kind of thing that they want to get to. And it feels like they're rushed to get to that kind of debate rather than maybe, I don't know, character development of like, okay, well, what's the investment of these fireflies? And, like, what are they doing in this community? I have no sense, if they're like complete charlatans, if they are zealots,
they're blowing up stuff, not caring who's around,
But then we know within a group, there's different types of affiliations, different types of political factions within one group, right?
Right.
So you don't know if this individual, I know we're going to learn more about the people that are killed here later on in the storytelling. But, like we don't have a sense of that here. And maybe that's the point is that, this is going to be a regrettable moment that there was no character development of these folks at this point, and maybe there's a reason that there isn't. It's the most black and white, other than David, the cannibal rapist,
right?
Like a villain can be, right? But if we're not going to have the villain kind of like characterization, I did want like a moment of like, and I know just like a little bit more room for Pedro Pascal to like show a little bit of like the effect or development that's going on with Joel or something. I don't know.
You do like, it's interesting because in the game, even though it's CGI, and you can look at this in the remaster, what they did with part 1, you can't see my face. You can see my face, Veronica, but Joel was like, when she says like, swear to me, like that you're not lying to me. And Joel was like, I swear. Like he was like, he was almost
incredulous.
Like,
yeah.
He was like, it took him a second to answer.
So it's more obvious that he's lying.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that Ellie, when she's in the car, she's in the truck, and she turns away, she knows something. She just doesn't know to what extent.
Yeah.
And you see that question comes up in part 2. And that's the reason why there's so much, why Ellie on the cover of the video game is looking like a fucking angry monster. Why she looks like, when David bloodied up her nose by, banging her up against that jail cell or whatever. Part of me, a lot of me, and a lot of people in this debate, like recent, don't think about COVID-19. Like, will you save what? You see how people acted.
Right.
We're more civilized and we're not as desperate as everybody is in that show. But you could just see the factions of people that I'm not getting vaccinated. There's people that still die of COVID-19 because they don't want to get vaccinated.
Sure.
And can you really count on Fedra to give out the proper information?
Right.
Do you think that the Fireflies are going to hoard it to try to make themselves in that world, save who? Just keep those people close. Like you think about family, that's when you really do start to think about family and the community of people like that are like Jackson. There's probably other places like that around a release around the world, but around when we think about America, we think about, America or whatever. But
Mhm.
there's probably people that are living civilized, like the couple that we have in Wyoming that are outside of
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know.
And it is a thing of like, okay, if this is like a proper medical research question, some observation before splitting her head open and just
Right,
like opening it
right.
up.
Yeah, we're
Like
just
some
like,
kind of, there's no such thing as medical consent anymore. Of like,
yeah, like they
it's
didn't
all blown
tell
to
her
shit. Yeah.
because they knew she probably wouldn't have.
Well, who knows? I mean, that's the
Well,
thing.
and
Is that
shit, I don't want to spoil the fucking.
at this point in the story, who knows? And that
We don't
decision
know
is made for her by
because
Marlene, and then the decision is made for her by Joel.
right.
And the thing is, neither of them is saying, Ellie, these are the options, or this is the choice I made for you. No
Mhm.
one's being straight with her. No one's like telling her exactly what the situation is. They're
Right.
just making choices for her. And that's the whole thing, right? It's like protection, but it's also infantilizing because she's not an actual person to you then.
Yeah.
She has no right to make her own decisions.
Right. Because they know if she didn't want to, because the plans that they were making, like what I told you, like, what I wanted to talk about later once we got to this part. Oh, I'm going to teach you how to do the guitar. I'm going to teach you this. I'll go wherever you want me to go. We just got to do this one thing. I'm going to drop off this sample. Then we go kick it in Jackson and you teach me how to play the guitar. That's what I thought that's how I felt about Ellie. Like she's just kind of like,
yeah, she's a 14-year-old, and even Joel,
14.
who's smarter, should have
Yeah.
known better, didn't. So,
And it goes, and then like, I didn't get to talk about this with you. I talked about it with Rod. When she puts the blood on Sam, she, I don't know if that's her thinking that she's gonna do anything that it can help, or is that just a child's? What did you think about that?
it's like, what's a science education? One would hope that it'd be better in Fedra school than it is, but she's also 14. It's the
Yeah,
optimism. It's like
right.
the kind of like human bias we have towards optimism, even despite ourselves sometimes. And also her like taking on this kind of guilt that's
Yeah.
not hers to take. There's no way that she could have done anything. I think it's a mixture of both, of like developing how like Ellie's got this burden of feeling like she's a superhero, even though she has no actual skills to realize that.
Yeah.
And then also just not understanding like that kind of hope and desire taking over logic. So it's like the child's mind, but then it's also like the optimism of humans that are cornered and have hope for a possible future. So I think it's a mix of both.
I agree. I just wanted to see what you thought about that since we were on that. Yeah, it's you got these people. You're special, Ellie. You got three grown-ups.
Yeah, Captain Kwong.
That she's special.
Yeah.
But
Marlene.
Joel thinks she's special because she's Ellie.
Right.
Not because you talk about love being this like dangerous thing, like the dangers of unconditional love and how it can corrupt us. But I don't
it's
know.
also like a paternal love, or a love that's like in the same kinds of ways. If we think of the David example, right? These people are so stupid. They just want a father and a leader, and so I'm going to provide that for them, even though I don't believe in the doctrine that I am preaching.
Right.
And so, it's how similar that might be to being a parent, of like wanting to protect your child. At the same time, you are not giving them agency to grow into their own individuality and make their own choices. So, it's like, it's not only love can be damaging in those ways, but also like love can, and the need and desire to protect can really hamper or kind of limit your imagination about, what this person is capable of,
That, I mean, I had that, I think with both my parents. They definitely supported me. And I don't think my dad my mother, when she'd be mad at my dad, she would say, your father I used to be excited to see your plays in high school, and your dad used to say, well, ain't gonna be nothing. And because they would come to the shows, but my dad wanted me to play football. He wanted me to play
Right.
sports.
Right.
But it wasn't until like when I was in college, my freshman year, we did this. This is one of my Al Bundy moments where I
Mm.
reminisce on my acting career, some of the highlights. We did this production of The Misanthrope by Moliere, and the Harpagon was this misanthropic guy who was rich and didn't have any friends, but he was in love with this woman named, I think, Celeste. Anyway, I played his best friend and his lawyer. And it wasn't until like my dad, I think he knew I was talented, but he when he saw that, he was like, oh, this is who my son is. This is him in college and at a high level. He's only been at school for like two months, and now he's in this play and he's like really doing his thing. And that's when he just kind of, you know, started to believe and really like understand, like, oh, this is my son. This is who I am.
Stop seeing you as a shadow of himself or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he would even say that, like he would say, yeah, I wanted you to play sports. I don't know if that's if that's in the podcast that he and I did like 10 years ago now, but like, I don't know if that's, but he admitted to me where he said, yeah, I was living through you. He would say that. He didn't have
it's
a
also
problem.
like you want to be able to relate and be,
Yeah.
Understand where this person is in life or what their interests are. That makes sense.
Right. So it was just like when I think of that, I mean, I don't have any kids, but I was with Ellie for 20 hours and I grew to care about her, and there's no way you're taking her away from me. I'll deal with the consequences later, but you're not killing this girl because y'all really don't know what the fuck you're doing.
Right. And you don't want her to be the experiment.
Right.
At the same time, taking away her ability to make that choice is going to lead to a very angsty child.
And that's a great point. And
because you don't want to do that. You don't want to make the choices for the child, because then they're going to resent you and they're going to hate you. And especially if you're dishonest about that, and which is what we're ending this season with, Joel being dishonest.
Yeah. It's you hit the nail on the head, and that's, I mean, kind of what happens in part 2. And it doesn't come till that happens in part 2.
Yeah, it makes sense, because you can even see it at this moment. Like, she turns away.
Right.
She's like, I understand what is happening. She doesn't know it before, but she's a kid that is able to read situations and read people. And so she has to, in order to survive. She's had to.
Right.
It's the same kind of thing that people that come up in like abusive households know how to read other people's moods, because their survival depends on it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, about the massacre in the hospital. It was kind of elegant how they did it. I was impressed. I was like, oh, this is how they're gonna do it, without showing all that violence.
And not being too enamored with the violence, because something you think about, like scenes in like Hong Kong Action or Face Off or something, or John Wick, where it's like so stylized and in a way that's beautiful. It was sort of also muted.
Yes. Yeah. Because that's all you didn't really need. You didn't really need that much, to be honest. Like, you just show us, I think Pedro Pascal he's amazing.
They're both doing so much acting.
They're both
like
great.
The physicality, like the ways that Bella Ramsey is able to convey so much. With her body.
Her laugh is infectious. And you still get to see that kid in her. Now, I'm excited to see the shift in part two. That's kind of like that because it's almost like she's gonna try on these a different persona. I don't want to spoil. I'm excited to see her be a grown up,
Yeah, to process all
a
this that
young
she's gone
adult.
through. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think they got they got the right person. People keep saying, "Oh, are they going to recast?" No, all you got to do is to get her main antagonist to be bigger than her, and that's really all you need.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be, and it's not that's not going to be hard. And the people that the fans and other people have like said, "Oh, this person should play the X, the main antagonist," and you're like, "Oh yeah,
Hmm.
that looks good," you know. And
Hmm.
in the world of the show, it doesn't. You just have to have suspension of disbelief anyway. Um, that this person can do what they're that this person's gonna, like I'll show you've seen is gonna turn like that. She's gonna turn into this. I don't even know if you can see it, like
Yeah.
turn
Yeah.
into
Chris is showing me a figurine, a very angry Ellie.
Ellie with a machete. And when you see it, like I remember when they showed the trailer. Ooh, oh God, never mind. It was just like wow, and I don't know. I think it's
Chris can hardly contain himself how excited he is for part two.
I am very excited. I think to see Bella do what she's gonna do next season. I'm
And now you
excited.
can watch Game of Thrones, Chris, where you see both of these characters.
I know
actors.
I'm gonna have to go back.
You can do this. You can do it.
Yeah. I'm gonna watch. I never had an aversion to that show.
Okay.
It was just something that I just didn't. I was like, it's cool that other people like it, and
Yeah.
just not my thing. I'm not the biggest sci-fi person, but
I wouldn't say it's sci-fi.
fantasy, I guess.
Fantasy. Yeah. Fantasy. Ish. Yeah, totally fantasy. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about it off mic.
Do you have any other thoughts on this? I mean, because we pretty much I just don't like, I've been alluding to this the whole time. I just don't like people just trying to find to try to have moral supremacy over something like this, where it's like we're talking about my kid.
I just don't see the point, honestly, in debating like the kind of moral parts of it.
Right.
I see it as a provocative piece of media that gets people talking about these things, and that's interesting for that. But as far as like, oh, what I've done with John, I don't see why I would talk about that.
Yeah.
To be honest, yeah.
Yeah, because I always think about it, and I've said it in conversations that I've had with Rod and other people that have played the game. It's just like, save what?
Yeah.
What humanity?
Well, there's that. And then it's just like, this is interesting for the kinds of questions it raises. So you do that. Okay, if Joel had let her die, and then what happens, and then it's a completely wasted thing, and then that destroys Joel, and what kinds of stories could you tell from that?
Mm-hmm.
What kinds of stories can you tell from Joel telling her about the fact that he had done this? What kinds of stories can you tell with Joel not telling her? So it's more like, what are the conditions and criteria? What kinds of conditions can you set up to tell an interesting story?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know. Yep.
Yeah. Well, and I was gonna say, I guess maybe I would say like my little needle drop that I have to get in.
Yeah.
I talked about and it kind of like St. Vincent has this record that's called Pieta, and it was the Pieta is like Mary holding Jesus. There's a statue of Mary holding Jesus. I think it's like when Jesus is like dying or whatever.
Okay.
And it's a song that's basically about her father leaving her mother. This is what Genius says. I don't know how 100% true it is, but it's like showing her being like at a pool with her father at the Holiday Inn, and she says like the baptized in the shallow end of a Holiday Inn, limbs dangled over my paw like an inverse pietà. So instead of facing her head facing her dad's face, it would be an inverse, like he's trying to put her in the water to make her swim. So it's the opposite of that. And it's like the chorus is like, as Mother Nature cried, you are Leviathan, my child. You are Leviathan inside. And it's almost like that kind of points to like everybody. So you got like David saying she's got an evil heart or some shit.
Violent heart.
Violent heart. Like a violent heart. It just every time somebody, and I use this in Mayor of Easttown too, like when somebody's holding somebody, like for some reason I think of that song. I may not be 100% right, but at the end of Mayor of Easttown, when I was like, Mayor is holding her best friend, and I just for some reason think about that record, and it's really just like a beat. It's off a 10-inch, but it just made me. And then with this one, like Leviathan, it's like there's something inside Ellie that is gonna get awakened. And it's and like I think of Joel carrying her out of the hospital. Like there's almost like, what do you call? Isn't there a term called baptism by fire or trial by fire? I've heard of trial by fire, but I don't think a baptism by fire is a term. I'm not.
I feel like that may be something. Yeah, but, baptism by fire. A difficult or painful new undertaking or experience. Dictionary, Oxford Dictionary.
And it's literal, like we were talking about. She's in the hell, David, and all that. She's transformed by that.
I mean, I think that imagery when I see Joel carrying her out of the hospital, I'm thinking of like classic Western iconography, the cowboy saving the damsel in distress, whatever it might be. And, he's got the hidden holster, get the hidden gun in order to trick Marlene and disarm her. So I don't know. I think that for me, it's also this thing of like the consequences the cowboy will face for the decisions he's made.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And they didn't linger on that dead doctor for nothing.
They lingered on some random dead person face, though. Do they linger on the doctor's face?
They did a little bit with the bullet in his head.
Okay.
They did linger on a random dead guy, but
yeah, I remember the random dead guy.
Yeah, somebody tried to allude to the fact that there was somebody looking at Joel kill those people.
Oh, interesting.
I don't know if that was a stretch, but
yeah,
I'd have to look at that part again. But
that was like that thing where people were saying in White Lotus there was a camera when
there was,
yeah.
I think there was.
But anyway, it's also these like details that like, okay, maybe.
And this is kind of a stretch, but when I mentioned this St. Vincent record, but I always think about that, and I don't think it's too far-fetched, but you could definitely make connections. Like Leviathan is a sea monster. It's a monster nonetheless. And I can't wait for people to play it. I think more people, if you like this show and you play video games, you can get the game on PlayStation. It's best to get it on PlayStation 5 or PC coming out in a couple weeks. And then if you play The Last of Us Part 2, I mean, you'll see. It's a beautiful mess. But I love it. I love that game. So is there anything more that we can say about
I think we did it.
I think we did it.
We'll have to face the consequences for decisions, having done it.
Right. Right.
But it was fun to do it with you, Chris.
Yeah, this was so much fun. I knew that I picked you were my first choice, and I don't know if I would have done it if you didn't do it. So this was really fun to get to chat with you about this.
Yes, likewise.
Yeah, I had a great time. I hope, and we've been getting some nice comments. We've been getting like some listens and stuff, and some people are more vocal than others about, them liking it or not. But
Sure.
I had fun, and I really, wasn't like, oh, what's this podcast saying about it? What's that? I listened to the same YouTube channels that I would listen to after watching a show that I liked, I wasn't really like, oh, I can do, I like I mentioned before, I hate a little bit on people that get to have the creators on their show, but I mean, it is what it is. That's just
It could happen someday. It could happen someday for Chris and the Mundane Festival.
Or maybe I'll just be on one of those fucking shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of this whole thing, gang.
No, not to be on the show. No,
on the official podcast, on the show.
No. It's the point. I achieved what I wanted to achieve.
Well, then there you go.
To talk to you about this and just have a good time talking about it, and hope people enjoy it. That's really the goal for this. And I think I had fun, and mission accomplished for me. I don't know about you.
Yeah. Hope you all had fun listening, and thank you for listening. We know you have many options to choose from. The Last of Us content. Jesus Christ. Everyone's talking about this.
Are you reading from a script? We know you have many options to choose from.
We know you have many options to choose from, and we appreciate you flying with the Mundane Festival.
All right. Episode 10 of Brickmasters Podcast, a subsidiary of the Mundane Festival. That's it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. And maybe I'll go on a slight break, not for the Patreon people. If you're a Patreon person, there's about 20 plus minutes of me doing stand-up in Pottstown, Pennsylvania.
It's great, even though he starts with like 10 minutes making fun of Mexican restaurants. It's still good.
What? I didn't make
It's still good. Chris isn't racist. Just
shots fired. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to you next time. Take it easy, everybody.